702 indeed, Heritage Day, and a month to reflect on our heritage and diverse cultures. Dr. Deonita Damons is the director at Boston City Campus, and Dr. Deonita is joining us to speak about this Heritage Day. How do we really turn South Africa's heritage into a window of opportunity for future generations? Dr. Damons, thanks for your time. Welcome to 702. Let's try that again. Dr. Now I can hear you. Sorry, we couldn't hear you for a second there. Are you there, Dr. Damons?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me now?
Now I can. Thank you so much. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, and good morning.
Good morning to you. You were speaking about reimagining our heritage institutions for a new era. Firstly, how do we do that, and how do we define this new era that we are in on Heritage Day?
I think we must also just not forget the point that South Africans celebrate Heritage Month, a time to honor our diverse cultures and the struggles for those who came before us. So this year's theme about reimagining our heritage calls for a bold shift from heritage as memory to heritage as momentum. So from dust and silence to engines of innovation and opportunity. So you ask, how do we do that? I think traditionally when we think of heritage, we think of monuments, museums, and history. But because of the theme, we need to shift our heritage as memory to heritage as momentum, turning what we've inherited into that opportunities of innovation and social change, because heritage is not static, it evolves. Our past gives us identity and resilience, but it's education, skills, and empowerment that transform that legacy into a brighter future. I think I want to just reiterate what Mr. Mackenzie recently said, and he puts it so perfectly, that the courage of our past heroes gave us freedom. Our responsibility now is to give the next generation the skills to use that freedom to the fullest.
And we do that how?
Well, I think we need to look at how we integrate real-world skills opportunities into our current curricula, into our education, by providing opportunities whereby we integrate technology into our heritage, how we can digitize our heritage to make it more accessible to our youth of today, tell the stories that they can resonate with, to build their identity and their trust, and make sure that we build our current youth for the future skills.
And when we're speaking about heritage, largely, it would obviously be connected to the past, as you might have said. And it would speak to languages, practices, cultural outlooks, and many other in the tapestry of who we are as a people's identity. You are bringing in a very interesting component herein, and that component is of young people. And firstly, before we digitize, before we rope everyone in, and before we advance, do we have a thorough comprehension of the richness and the wealth of our heritage? Do young people see it that way?
I think that is where we still have a lot of work to do, because they're still not hearing the stories that they know. They're still not hearing their stories. We're still not telling our own stories, our own truths of our past. And once we start communicating that honest truth of our past to our young people, maybe they'll be able to resonate with where they come from, and maybe that would be the thread that they take future in building a better future. But I think we also need to understand that there's a lot of challenges with access to the stories, to access to the skills, to access to certain digital resources that our young people still lack. They put them in the background and they can't actually gain access to the new world skills that they require to leave a different legacy for the next generation.
Yeah, and whilst doing so, I'm just wondering that are there any instruments that we can employ to enhance that comprehension, given the complexity of our country, which I dread to speak about, Dr. Damons, that it's so diverse and so complex, and there's a lot of healing that is needed, and also equally so, there's a lot of pretentious attitude that we are all in a good space and going towards the same direction. And the economic demographics show you that we are far from that. We are eons apart as far as that is concerned. concerned. But equally so, we must, I would like to believe, somehow leverage on the momentum of growth that we would want to enhance. How do we make sure that we bridge those divides that I'm speaking about, especially amongst young people, so that as much as they may know, but they are not held captive to the ghost of the past?
I think with all things said, education still remains the greatest divide. And unless we have equitable quality education for everyone and not just for a select few, and I'm not saying that it's only for a select few, we're never going to bridge that gap. We're never going to get to a point where everyone has got equal opportunity and equal access. And it's making available those opportunities to everybody, because like you rightfully say, people in urban areas have got access to knowledge. They've got access to opportunities. How do we take that knowledge and that access to people that don't live in urban areas? How to make sure that access and knowledge and information becomes universal for everybody? And what we go back to is our language of tuition, our language of instruction. Why do we only have a language of instruction in English? Why can we not have a multiple language of instruction in different institutions? And I think it goes about, do we have enough skilled educators to teach in our mother tongue? Then maybe that's a starting point. Let's start there. Do we have enough digital access for our students to actually gain access to education, quality education? And let's start small. But it's not just a policy issue. It's a combined issue. So we need to create an ecosystem between business, between policy makers, and between communities to create that environment where our youth gain access to quality opportunities.
And access would also speak to resources. We have seen students year after year where they gather at the gates of various institutions of higher education, lamenting the fact that they are not well resourced. They do not even have money to register. And access is very much linked to resources. That's even before we enter the lecture hall. And that's part of our legacy as well that we have inherited as South Africa.
No, absolutely. I mean, we've got a Boston Education Trust that specifically looks at giving bursaries to black female students to enter the tech industry because we know it's underrepresented. But we also want to encourage students, and that's again where it comes to access to knowledge, to look at the various areas where they can gain access to these resources. We've got sector education training authorities that give bursaries to all students that want to enter institutions of higher learning, not just NSFAS, but it's them again knowing that there are those avenues and access to resources. And it is our responsibility as this generation to make sure they know where to go to. And also bring in corporates, because corporates do have a responsibility, even within their BEE compliance, to actually award bursaries to students. So let us leverage on the policies that have been put in place to make sure that we can give every single student, whether it is an urban or rural student, equal access. Again, we only have a limited number of public institutions. We need to also look that there are private higher education institutions. Again, there is a misconception that you have to go to a public and there is no private, but also it is about knowledge. If you know that you have options.
My guest right now is speaking about turning South Africa's heritage into a window of opportunity for future generations. Dr. Deonita Damons, Director at Boston City Campus. 19 minutes after 11 o'clock, feel free to weigh in the conversation. You can simply call us on 011-883-0702. 011-883-0702. Alternatively, send a voice note or a text message to 072-702-1702. How are you enjoying your Heritage Day today, and what does it mean to you, especially if you're a young person? It could be that we are bombarding you with things that happened in the past. It could be that we are speaking about obscure cultural practices that are very removed from you and they just don't make sense. And all that you can do is just wear an African cloth and pretend to be in tandem with everything else that is going on. And you're asking yourself, why do we even bother with Heritage Day? Feel free to express those or any other thoughts if you have. Send us a voice note and and let us see how especially young people are warming up to Heritage Day. Is it relevant to them at all, or should we be harnessing this energy, this spirit of Heritage Day for something bigger in the future, so that when we speak of Heritage Day in 2049, we are all united, understanding one definition of our heritage, and hopefully it will be glazed by sprinkles of success. I'd love to hear from you. 011-883-0702. 011-883-0702. Dr. Damons, where do we start? Because, as I've said, we can just look forward, and some people may think, they're just dreaming again on radio. We'll never get there. This is so obscure. But pragmatically, which steps do we take from today?
I think we should understand that heritage is not frozen in time, and it is evolving, and we must recognize that the people before us sacrificed dreams so that we could have the freedom to choose. And when you look at heritage and you harness it as part of education and opportunity, it creates a virtuous cycle. So it is important that we understand that there's a natural evolution. So if parents are skilled and educated, they provide stability, health and education. In turn, those children grow confident and capable, and they create a different legacy. So it starts with the policymakers. Have they put sufficient policy in place to be inclusive, to be equitable, and to be fair? It starts with the type of education we give. Are we telling the true stories? Are we telling our stories? Are we incorporating our culture and our heritage in our stories that we tell? And we're not just telling a story from a specific version. Are we being honest with what happened in the past, depending on whether we are white South African, black South African, colored South African, or other South African? And are we bringing those experiences into our education, into our system, and are we making sure that our education system speaks to what the world demands? We have an enormous workforce, and by 2050 there'll be 10 million more people entering the workforce. Are we preparing them for that? And that is a great opportunity, because we've got the biggest workforce in the world as Africa, not just South Africa. And if we do not harness that, we miss the opportunity of becoming a powerhouse globally.
Handing information from one generation to the other, I would suppose that's passing the baton and making sure that those who are younger now are able to run with the same momentum. Is that happening? And what role can education play in making sure that there is transfer, not just of skill, but of indigenous knowledge, of the wealth of the country, and just social capital from one to the other?
I think our young people today have got an amazing opportunity where they can digitize and narrate our indigenous stories. I was looking at a documentary about a tribe and how it was narrated, and imagine if they can digitize those stories to make it available for the world. It's both an entrepreneurial opportunity, a business opportunity, but it's also a growth opportunity, because the way they narrate it speaks to the currency of today. Social media, immediate, instant gratification. And if we can take our stories and narrate them in a mean or in a way that the youth of today consume, can you imagine how fast it would grow? And can you imagine the pride within our youth if they know their story, they know where they're coming from, and it's set and presented to them in a way that they appreciate it? And that's what we're not doing well enough, I believe.
24 after 11, and who should be doing that, Dr. Damons? The schools, the parents, society at large, or who should be doing that?
I think as an education institution, we teach our students digital skills. We teach them in some of our programs how to create the content. We teach them how to tell the stories. We now should give them the platform as business, as community, where they can actually display those skills, where they can actually showcase those platforms. So it is an ecosystem. It's a combined effort. We can only provide the tools. Other people must provide the opportunity. But together we can definitely create a platform where young people can actually get akin to their stories and their homage and their indigenous pride.
Yeah, and we have almost 2 million young people who have stopped looking for work. The unemployment rate is very high, especially amongst young people. And we see these staggering figures that are somehow responsible for the despondency, I would assume, in attitudes of many young people. I suppose after gaining the skills and we need to put them to practice, the world of work, is it really open for young people to express themselves accordingly? Because there seems to be a certain corporate heritage that we hardly speak about, that the young ones don't resonate with as much. They want to work perhaps from home, certain hours, and as opposed to our work ethic, they bring theirs. It's different. I wouldn't say bad, but it's different altogether. Does that play a role in what you've been saying, Dr. Damons?
Well, I think the one flaw that we had in our education system from foundational phase is not inculcating entrepreneurial skills within our youth. Because I think my generation specifically, and probably before me, we grew up with the mindset that you have to be employed. And there's a specific genre of employment that we're looking for. The young people of today have got a different view of what the world of work would look like. And we are not evolving fast enough to accommodate that. But I think also what we need to do is we need to understand that the type of employment and the type of work and the type of professions have changed. So maybe it is time that the world of work also adjusts to accommodate this new genre of employee. But the new genre of employee should understand they're graduates. They've got skills. They've got bright ideas. They've got brilliant concepts. Why not put it into play and become your own employer instead of just looking for employment? On the other hand, education institutions should ensure that what they teach in the institution resonates with what the corporate world wants. So unless there's relevance between what is being taught in the classroom and what the world of work wants, we're always going to have a mismatch, and the graduate will not be work ready. So ensuring that the graduate is work ready with internship, mentorship will make it easy for the workplace to absorb. But I think we also need to rethink what we think of employment, and maybe self-employment is an alternative and a solution to unemployment.
011-883 0702. Would love to hear from you. And Dr. Damons, you're also mentioning the heritage of intergenerational virtuous cycle. And I think there's something to be said about this, because at times we are caught in this vicious cycle of things perhaps that took place in the past, and they're handed over to young people. But now, 20 years from now, are we on the positive trajectory to get to the heritage that we want as South Africa?
The few that had opportunity for education and growth, they definitely are on the positive trajectory. There's still a vast majority of our people that do not have that, and they're not on the correct trajectory. It is reaching out to those individuals to make sure that the next generation is not caught up in the same cycle. And it is a challenge to get to that generation, or to get that generation to the same playing field. I think it is also unfair to say 20 years is soon. It's also unfair to say to the ones that are looking at it and say 20 years is long enough. So it is a challenge to get to that. So I think for some people the trajectory has been great. For others there's still a lot of struggle and there's still a lot of hardship, and that goes back to access to knowledge, access to resources, and access to people that they can look up to as role models. So it is my responsibility, your responsibility, and people of our generation's responsibility to show to them that it is possible. But it takes a lot of effort, and it is a combined effort that we need to employ.
Doc, thanks very much for your time. Really appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll chat again in the near future. Dr. Deonita Damons, Director at Boston City Campus.